All right then. But then, so for this particular one, we're just gonna go over under the issues on the two main repo for the operator framework, which is operator lifecycle manager and the operator registry, and we just gonna try to address some of the new issue and also closing out any old issue, stale issue that we no longer trying to resolve anymore. So get started on the OM side first. Let's see if we have anything new here. There's a couple issue related to some testing. I'm gonna ignore that. And I think this is one of the issue open to for the bumping the cube version on OM, and I think there's only had a PR pending for this. It's already been working on, so that should be easy. It should be on its way to get results. So I'm gonna just ignore it for now. There's an epic type of feature, pretty much. Do you want to say something about this, Per?
Yeah, I was just trying to gather, yeah, basically any low-hanging fruit that we have that could improve the contributor experience. So fixing up CI, removing flakes, improving documentation, all these kinds of things. So at the moment, it's still very much in the gathering stage, so we can define the epic and what we want to put under there and what we want to target to improve that experience. And then once that's done, we can split it out into tasks and into stories of tasks and point them and queue them up. So if anyone has any suggestions on what we should target as a low-hanging fruit here, they're very much welcome.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, I think this is a good starting point in the Korean epic case. So if anyone have any thought, any interest, any idea about what we want to improve here and feel like it's connected to this overall epic, feel free to create an issue and tag it into this epic, and we can go from there in the next feature meeting.
So yeah, one suggestion. So yeah, I think the tasks under this epic may be very easy one, like put some documentation improvement or something specific. So you can tag like a good fast issue or something tag so that people can get in to contribute this epic.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I will do that, Eric. All right then. I know you have some suggestion here already, so I think that's a good point. I think someone did some of that. Right. And I try to put a milestone here for the next release, so we can actually have some type of a goal there. All right, moving up next. This issue for don't generate a client cube at runtime for the testing framework. Alex, do you want to talk about this? Is Alex here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, so this isn't anything too crazy. It just kind of came up during one of our reviews that we have some functions in the E2E testing framework that generate a new cube client within the function instead of taking that taking a client as a provided parameter to the function. So what we'd like to see is that, and if you click that link where it's the hyperlink that says this discussion, it kind of shows an instance where this happens. But basically go into the project, look for a new client and change the method to accept an actual client.
Okay, and I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly because I need to look back on the code a little bit, but you will usually create a new client for every test, right? Is that correct?
Yes, but so I think it's fine to do that, but in this instance, if you look at that code, it's happening inside the eventually function right there, and then in other instances, like the function itself.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Normally, you're supposed to create the client before owner the test. I mean, like at the beginning of the test, you create a client and using it for the entire test, and then you queue it later. That situation. So this is not good. Okay, this may be a mistake somewhere that needs to be addressed. This should not be like this.
Yeah, and there's other instances where, in this other instances where we have somewhat similar stuff. Like I'm sure there's instances if we look up new cube client, we can find, if you search for that word in the repository, you'll find that like we probably should be like defining it up front. And I'm fine for it being like each suite of tests getting their own client even. Ideally, we do it at the very beginning upfront.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Normally on the same suite, meaning like, CSV test suite or, subscription, we should having a before type of thing to set everything up and then reusing for the entire suite with like, 50, 20 tests and then queue it at the end of the suite instead of having to create it for every single individual test within. So I think that's a good thought. You can certainly do that.
Yeah, and I think it's worth marking this as like a good for somebody, like
Yeah.
an easy. But
I do agree. All right then, that sounds good. I put my store here as well, so we can actually having some goal here a little bit. All right then, move on. The 5 upstream release cycle. Alex.
I get to participate much more in this meeting. So, so this is born out of us cutting a v0.20.0 release. There are a number of issues included in the milestone that didn't make it. And we had discussed on the working group meeting that it may prove fruitful for the health of the community to have a discussion in terms of what our release process should look like going forward, in which we establish a regular cadence at which a new version of OLM is released, a form of like upstream tracking of issues that are being resolved targeted at the next release, right? And we've my hope was to basically build my own opinions on this and discuss what that could look like in our next working group meeting, and hopefully collect additional feedback there to make sure that we don't design a process that the community doesn't enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think
I encourage anybody who is interested in how we like what OLM is going to be committing to in terms of our upstream release process to comment on this issue and make requests so that they're known up front.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think this is a good start here. If anyone have any kind of idea, thought, or even a proposal for that matter, let's put a comment in here and we can gather all the thought and feedbacks and ideas pretty much, and then discuss in the next meeting and can get formalize, not formalize, but put up a proposal, like on together proposal about how this process of release process for upstream is supposed to look like, and see if anything that anyone can agree upon and put it there. That's so good. All right, let's move on to the next issue. This interesting question. So this question is possible to install 2 different instances of OLM in the same cluster. And I think Danielle Messer already answered in this. We currently do not support this. There should be only one OLM instances running in any given particular cluster. So I'm going to read this very comment and see why there's a request for this. And also asking anyone here, do you guys think there's ever a need to having 2 different systems of OLM running in the same cluster?
Well, there's clearly a need based on the fact that this individual submitted this question. I don't know that need needs to be so highly prioritized that we do this in lieu of other work.
Yeah, but I mean, sadly, the person who submitted doesn't provide much information, but I think in this particular comment, he said that he actually seeming he want two different OLM instead to actually having access to two different repo pretty much in terms of like catalog source content, because I think one's supposed to be public and one point to a internal private registry. And depending on, I don't know how is that going to work with the console, the user facing aspect of that, but and this merely a question actually. He said they just evaluating the possibility, even though I'm not sure.
Yeah, my gut tells me that if you try today to install multiple OLM versions that are scoped, that you'll get odd behavior, especially when it comes to the, you know, like the some of the more cluster scoped stuff. And I don't think that this is something that we're realistically going to do in any near future. And I understand that it's a valid ask, but I think we won't do this. I haven't thought about it enough to have a concrete reason to why we won't do it. And we could discuss that here. But I think this is an instance where it's like, oh, it's a reasonable ask, but it's not something we're probably going to do. Does that mean we go and close this issue with a good, with a lengthy, like, oh, this is why we're going to do it?
Yeah, I personally feel I will close this because it's a request and it can be a valid request, but there needs to be a reason behind this. And this particular person haven't provided any strong reason that they need a particular use case that's helpful to actually doing this. And the only thing is so far about having certain access to certain catalog source. And even if you can have intuitions to point to different catalog source content just because you want it to be one is private, one is public, that doesn't really help anything in terms of user facing because they still gonna see both. So that doesn't actually really do anything much in terms of like if your intention is just to hiding one of those and keep one public private situation, that doesn't work for them. Let's do anything that any catalog sort that you have access on the cluster, that means public for everyone. So yeah, I have not seen the strong reason behind this.
Yeah, and I think as of today, OLM is designed to run as a cluster singleton, right? Like that's what it is. And to do this would mean that we have to move to scoping it, which is something we're not even advocating the operators that OLM installs to do, right? So my opinion is we're never going to do this and we should probably close it. I'm happy to have someone else weigh in like Per or Joe, but I think this issue can be closed and basically written up in that response.
Yep, I agree with that. Alex, would you mind typing a comment on this?
I wonder.
Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
It sounds like they're trying to hide package manifests, right? So it seems like there's something here that like a use case that doesn't actually require 2 OLM instances. So maybe the better thing to do would be to like reframe what they want to do in a way that like maybe we can support it. Because it seems like it's a valid thing where like, yes, there will only be 1 OLM instance, but you want to scope. Well, I guess in the future APIs, we're talking about the, the operator, I guess what we're calling like the bundle instance, like is potentially going to be a cluster scoped object, in which case like you can't really limit the catalogs. So yeah, I don't know. It might be better to try to reframe the discussion around that and then have a discussion about like where our plans are going and then close it. But I think I agree that, well, I guess I definitely agree. Like there's not going to be 2 OLM instances. So maybe what we could do is close it and say like there won't be 2 OLM instances. And then like maybe kind of lead into like maybe there can be some discussion about how we could segment views of the catalogs or something like that.
Yes.
Just a quick note. So if we look at their second comment, it basically looks like they want to use OLM to install some custom, to provision operators from a custom catalog, and then they want to have, and then their second requirement is they want tenants on their cluster to be able to install and use OLM. And the idea of saying like, oh, making it so that they have OLM available to, scoping it so that they have a private catalog that only they can install the operators from, right? That's very easy with a singleton. It just depends if they are set on saying, oh, but the customer also has access to the OLM instance, right? Because that's where it gets a little trickier. Because it doesn't seem, based on the second half of their comment, they don't want to provide access to the customers when they're using OLM. So it just seems like either their thinking is kind of doesn't align with how we support using OLM, right? Like, I think Joe's right that they could use a single OLM instance, allow customers to install operators and catalog sources and have a pretty good go of things. But I mean, you run into a whole host of other problems at that point with multi-tenancy, right?
So actually, if I understood this correctly, at least what Joe was saying, it sounded like what he was talking about was namespace catalog sources. And by that, I mean that when you, that seemed like a modification to the package server, so that when you do get manifest in a particular namespace, that's when you see some of the manifests, but not, and then it won't be a cluster scoped resource yeah. And if that is the case, then I am curious about that. And I mean, I'm happy to get this assigned to myself and just see if that's what they want, like Joe mentioned.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was suggesting. I think the problem though is that, like, I think, and maybe others can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like the direction we were going with RuckPack is that those APIs would be cluster scoped, because like this is OLM is effectively like a control plane thing, right? So when you install an operator and you install a CRD, all of that kind of happens once per cluster. So in my mind, at least, like, it makes sense that we would say, okay, those APIs are cluster scoped, in which case, like, listing the available operators to install and installing those operators seems like all of that stuff would happen at the cluster scope. So I feel like that kind of use case breaks down in the new set of APIs that we're headed towards. But so then, like, is it even worth trying to build this thing or support this thing with the existing set of APIs?
But a catalog source CR can be namespace scoped, right?
Yeah. So I want to say something real quick, just so we get a little bit too hairy here. So this particular comment is not clear enough. What's the intention here? Because just talking about a private catalog source doesn't really mean anything, in the sense that from a user perspective, what exactly private catalog source mean to them? Because if what they're asking here is about having certain content, certain operator available to certain, namespace, then I think what Anik just said already, that catalog source can be namespace, meaning that if you create a particular catalog source in a non-marketplace namespace, then it should be only available for that particular namespace, and this problem is already solved. But if they're saying that differently, in a way that I think Alex and Joe were saying, that they actually want, like, particularly on what Alex said earlier, they want to be having multiple different instances of OM in the particular namespace, and that particular instance just only care about that namespace only, in terms of they having the whole set of catalog source and own sort of setting or whatever they have, maybe to basically control that namespace only, then that is not doable. That's not something we support. That's not something we were planning to do. So that this need more clarification on what exactly they're asking for. They just mentioned about a private repo. This does not really give me a full picture on what's the workflow experience they want to see.
Yeah, and I think all we have to do, and Deem, as Daniel also kind of mentioned this, but I think ultimately what we say is hey, we definitely don't support 2 instances. As Dan mentioned in the last comment, we do support like scoping of operators. One drawback to this is that you really like the customer is using the same OLM instance that you're using. And what we plan to do in the future is blank, right? Like, I think as long as we say like, this is what you're asking isn't supported and we're not going to support it. This is how we kind of support it today. And this is like the future, how we'd like to support it.
Yeah, so let me typing a comment on here, Rick, to capture what we have been talking so far right now, and then ask them for further verification, further explanation, so to speak, on what exactly they want to see here, and then we can go from there. Because I think this can be something we'll resolve. This can be something maybe we want to do, or maybe not, and let's get the full picture of it before we speculating a little bit too much. So that's how good. Let me take care of that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so look at this Go release real quick. I thought this is solved already.
Hi again. This is just me capturing that so the Go releaser works. It's very, very fun. You just push a tag and then you get a new release of OLM out. It's great. One thing that I noticed though is that some headings are missing from the generated file, and I just created this issue to track it. So like it generates most of the existing text, but it's missing this install scripted component, which just it's nice for users because they can copy paste and then they have that version of OLM installed. So updating that action to basically paste 3 or 4 lines of text into the documentation for the release would be useful.
Sound good. So I think you already assigned to yourself. So I think this is basically drive, and whenever you're having a PR, I think we can begin to review on that. So that's so good. Thank you, Alex.
Hey, Alex, I don't know if you've gotten started on that yet, but I know SDK has to produce a custom changelog as part of their Go releaser flow. So if you haven't started looking or know what you're going to do yet, that might serve as a reasonable example.
So this section was just missed. I think the description already includes like other information that we had typically copy pasted into the release, and it generates that automatically. This is just like adding this to the list of stuff that's generated.
Cool.
All right, then. Thank you. I think all of the red issues have been tried in the review meeting already. So is there any particular issue here on the list that perhaps previously tried that we want to go back to? Aki, I know you have a couple of thing here, but I assuming all of them is testing related. Anything particularly that you need to voice up perhaps?
No, I don't.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to go to the other meeting, so I have to drop out.
Sure.
Sorry. Yeah.
No worry, no worry.
Next time.
I just want to check real quick. You have quite a few, so I just wondering if anything you need.
No. Yeah. Thanks for helping me to review stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I just want to go back down to the bottom of the list to see if I can close out a few things here. What? Oh, I think this already been tried, so let's move on from that. Okay.
One quick interjection.
Go ahead.
Did we start doing like the milestones and aligning, like adding things to releases yet?
Yes, I'm just doing that. I'm currently aside pretty much all of the issue we just talking early on to the 0.21.
Perfect. Okay.
This is the coming up one. Yeah. All right, then let's look at this tail issue real quick. So we consistent release something. Is this still a problem? Because this on stale, we have even, I think we're using the new Go releaser. So I think this probably not an issue anymore with the versioning.
This might be a thing. Do you want to just quickly look at the latest release?
Yeah, sure. Is a manifest here. This is the release, right?
20 should be the latest release, shouldn't it? Oh,
20. Is it 20? I think
V20 was just released.
I don't see anything here. On the latest is 18.3, which is 6 months ago, apparently. It's interesting.
Okay. You know what? Let's go up to we can look at the tagged releases, right? So if you go to the main part of the repo, click the operator lifecycle manager hyperlink. And then if you go to tags.
Okay, so we can.
It's 2 to the right. 20 was up at the top.
Yeah, we have 20 here, yeah.
Click that.
Is it any?
And then if you, sorry, could you click tags on I want to look at the actual thing we published. Can you go to it says 29
Okay.
and then click that. And then if we go down a little bit, we should be able to look at the, I think it's in OLM.yaml.
Oh boy. Do we have a version in here? I don't see. I mean,
If you just look for
if this is what we're talking about. I'm sorry, I need to close it. I'm not sure if anyone can see my screen or not.
We can't. We're still on the.
It's just
the
so
web
great.
If you just look for the version for the.
Yeah, I think version here says v0.20, so I think that's look good, right?
Yeah, if it's 0.20, then we're good to go.
Yeah, and also they have a label in here named OM.version, also 0.20, so I think that's good.
Yeah,
okay then.
That we're still supposed to have the release generated in the manifest here, so we should look at that.
Okay. Sure.
Would you
mind taking a look, Alex?
Yeah, I'll look.
Okay, so if you can tell, actually, oh my God. If this one is resolved, please close this if you can. So thank you, Adrian, for that. All right, that's good. Let's see, service is forbidden. Unnamed cities. So is it still an issue? I don't recall this problem. This is to run the console locally, by the way. It's actually in bare metal. This is this is something I'm not as sure. Probably need to reproduce in order to tell if it's properly resolved or not. All right, I think we at time here, so I would like to move over. So let me see. For this issue, let me take a look into it to see if it's resolved or not. But if I want to look at it, maybe we resolve. Anyway, let's move over to the registry side. As we already spend 36 minutes on the website. All right. Oh, sorry. Hey, there only one new issue. This is about Firebase catalog source. Okay. It's complained that the OPM validate doesn't report the error. Doesn't report error for some reason. It seems it's complaining they couldn't find that on the console, I think, but you can still apply, he still can apply that correctly, he or she apply correctly with the subscription. I'm a little bit confused about this.
Yeah, I mean, there was a version of OPM few versions ago where this when you created a file-based catalog, you wouldn't see any content there, but that was because I think OPM render or one of the commands wasn't. Yeah, I think it was OPM.
Oh, is that
render.
the bundle blob? Is that what you're saying?
Right,
bundle
right,
blob
right.
missing.
But,
okay.
Yeah, but for this, I think I see the OLM.bundle.object.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, this here.
So yeah, I don't know why that might be happening, but I'm happy to. It should be a quick test, so I'm happy to just try and get
That
this.
sounds good. Yeah, this may be something with the package manifest, maybe. Because he said particularly about the operate hub here. So yeah, okay. So if you can take a look, that would be nice, and comment on that if this is resolved, or if you can tell what exactly the problem here. We can go from there. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Actually, hold on. Do we have some milestone here?
Hey, Vu, I posted
Yes.
an issue on chat. We have another team that is blocked by this issue. It's actually on the operator SDK side, so I don't know if you guys want to have a look at it here or not, but it has to do with the OLM integration.
Okay, I think at the SDK is not really our domain. They're having their own trial issue, but let's take a look real quick. If it's actually something OLM related, we can absolutely.
So it's 5434.
5434.
I posted the link on the chat if that helps. Oh yeah, just do it. Like
5434, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so cannot add extra service account with the namespace in the. Hold on. Oh, I see. We don't allow namespace specifically for the manifest in the bundle. Everything created will be namespace will be configured at runtime, depending on what namespace you install that operator is. We do not allow a specific redetermined namespace on the manifest.
Okay.
So this is not the.
Are you sure? Vu, I thought like if the bundle had like extra manifests, that somehow like some of the namespaces of those manifests were honored. I could be wrong, but for some reason I thought that sometimes the namespace is honored and sometimes it's not.
As far as I know, the namespace on the manifest never been honored because we only apply that to the. We don't apply resources to all the namespace except for the namespace that the operator being installed in. So even if you specify the auto namespace, it doesn't work either way because we just not going to install anything beyond that.
I feel like what I remember is there was another issue where like the install failed because other namespace, like in this case, other -ns namespace didn't exist. And I was asking Kevin, like, you know, could we create that namespace? And there was some back and forth. And it seemed like as long as all the namespaces of the manifests that aren't being applied to the install namespace, as long as those other namespaces exist, like this will work. And, you know, that whatever that object is will be created in that other namespace. But again, like my memory is a little fuzzy. It might be something that we want to look into if neither of us are certain.
Yes, sure. I never had any knowledge the fact that we allow you to apply anything beyond the current namespace that you tried installing in. So that's why most of the manifest, as you can see, doesn't have any namespace at all, regardless if it's actually cluster resource or namespace resource. So this is not new to me, but maybe I I'm not 100% fully aware of, there's other changes that may happen to OM that allow this to happen in the first place. Because if I remember correctly, we actually try to scope down. We having what's it, that aggregated client, something that actually only allow you to apply to certain
There's
with permission.
there's some additional context at the bottom, which I think touched on what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, so this saying that this namespace already exists, which is I expect to be, but OM just doesn't create it because from my understanding, OM just doesn't install anything beyond the existing the current namespace.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they're saying here basically that this configuration will only work if the namespace already exists.
Let me see. Hold on.
So I think they're accepting this as a kind of prerequisite.
Oh, I see. Okay, so according to Camila, here's the fact that it's actually work if the namespace exists and OM, but if it will fail if the namespace exists. So this is actually sound correct because obviously this is a known thing that OM just doesn't create namespace. That's not something we do at all. So this seems to be unless it is looking this differently, that this is a request for us to basically create a namespace if needed, but that's not something we do.
The way that I'm reading this is that they accept that limitation, and I think they just want us to fix the spec validation.
Oh, I see. But that's like this is not, you cannot statically validate this. Like you cannot tell what the namespace is available on the cluster or not because you just statically validate locally, and how you can possibly determine if that's namespace available or not.
Hold on a sec.
Are they just asking that we don't fail validation?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what they're asking, is that they let this through and then fail on the other side. Maybe we should just generate a warning. Like, I don't know if the first question, which I don't know how to answer, is whether we want to support this use case or not. It sounds like we kind of already do. So I don't know what it would mean to close that gap, or forbid it entirely. But my reading here, is essentially that like they already accept that it won't work if the namespace is not there. They accept that we won't create that namespace, and I think they just want to be able to package it the way that they want it, which is a little bit dangerous. But I guess if it's for sort of more downstream stuff where they know a particular namespace will already exist,
Yeah,
maybe it's okay. I don't know.
I think this is a good instance to type a warning as opposed to an error. Like,
Yeah,
we warn people that, hey, this type of operator must have the prerequisite that this namespace exists. Otherwise, it will fail to install. You are allowed to do this. Like, that's basically what we're trying to get across, right?
Yep.
Yep, I agree. So this can be a warning with the namespace setting, and then it's up to them to, to consider that warning is a problem for them or not. We should do our best effort to surface the potential problem. That it can be a problem,
Yep.
but it may not be. So that's fine. I think that's something Camila can certainly do, and I will talk
But
about this.
I would also say there's two sides to this, right? There's the operator author side, who should know what they're doing and be warned of this. But there's also the user side who wants to install it, right? Because now there's a prerequisite for installing that, and they need to know about it somehow, so they don't get a bad experience.
Yeah, I think that there's two parts to that, right? As soon as the user sees this error, like, the warning should make it clear that they need to call that out as a prerequisite, right? And then the other thing that we need to do is we need to see what this looks like in OLM when you install an operator that has this namespace specified and that namespace doesn't exist, because we should make it very apparent for users that, oh, this operator would install, but it's not going to because this namespace is missing.
Yep.
That'd be my.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Alex, to add to that, ideally, the user could see that error and say, oh, okay, and then go and create the namespace, and then things would keep progressing. I don't know if, like, I know we have a lot of weird edge cases around like fixing the prerequisites after the subscription exists. But if this is a case where that can happen, then we should make sure that that can happen.
Yeah, so I do not know exactly what's the error look like if this is the case when the namespace doesn't exist, because it seemed to me the error here is actually from the validation, I think, not from the actual apply of this on the cluster. So I don't know what it look like, but because this will be on the install plan, so if it failed because of this, the install plan should get into the failed state, sadly. And if you fix that, you fix the problem by create that namespace and everything, you still need to trigger the install plan again manually. So this is something OM will not get resolved on its own by just fixing the namespace problem.
Would the work that we're going to do for managed services target that? Isn't that part of the issue, like with a failed to continuously, or part of the solution, sorry, to continuously try to reconcile a failed install plan?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's some thought about the fact that we can retry, but the thing is, it's only the question about you retry that forever or not. Is another story there, but that's certainly something we can discuss about how this whole experience would look like if the fail is not a permanent fail. It's more like a situational, temporary fail that fixable.
Yep.
Then there should be a way to move forward without require you to like do some, a little bit complex manual trigger. I mean, I think some of our team members know how to do that, but for a customer case specifically, a user normally they don't, sadly. So that's certainly something worth discussing for sure. All right, then I can talk to Camilla this offline and basically discuss to her to open a PR on the API repo and get this thing rolling, particularly about the validation piece. The rest about on cluster, then that's something we have to think up for the future for sure.
Yep.
Sound good? All right then.
Perfect. Thank you.
I will take care of that with Camilla. Okay, let's go back to registry real quick. So I think that's the only new issue, and I think Anik will take care of that. I think that's the only tried. Actually, there's a few of them is not tried. Actually, let me put my stall here. I just want to go over the only tried issue real quick to see if that's the issue. That's the side of me that I haven't looked into. I just want to assign my store real quick to see if we can keep this thing organized. Did I set aside that? Okay, got. I'm not sure why I'm clicking into the same issue over again. There's a PR pending already, so that's good. Let's assign to them. Make issue.
We talked about this, right?
Yeah, we did. This only tried. I just want to look into thing, and I think this. I just want to put it in the smart store so we can actually see what the thing that we're planning to do kind of a situation. I think this already had a PR for this, I think. But report Eric may actually fix it already. I would take a look into it. This is something should be fixed in the next release for the OPM dev. All right. This is main problem. I would put in the backlog because there's something really urgent. We actually may refix this with a recent PR actually with the empty channel over. So this may be actually going to be fixed coming up next. But I think that's the end of that. There's actually two of them. Couple here is not having a triad yet. Let's see. We can double check real quick to see why they are not. Maybe I didn't have the time to get to it. Skip range. Generally comment this already. Seem like this is the intentional behavior of skip range on the Firebase. Joe, do you have any recall about this particular issue?
Sorry, I wasn't totally paying attention.
This is the issue that about skip range that you commented on this.
So yeah, so it looks like they just didn't have a valid graph. I think we can probably just close this. It's been a long time.
Sure. We're getting your comment. This is like it's working as intended, so I think we can close it. All right then. Terrific.
The one question that I have again, I wasn't able to read the entire thing because Vu was scrolling up and down. But when in the current world using the SQL back catalog, in the SQL back catalog, if you're entering an element that either wasn't part of a valid graph or broke the graph, the user had a warning. It sounds like with Firebase catalog, with this issue again, I have to read through this entire thing. The users are in the dark as to what exactly is going on. So otherwise, this person would have probably been able to come to that conclusion by themselves. Does that seem like a problem and something that should be discussed?
Yeah, so I think the issue here is that it seems like they're actually using replace for a while, and they switching over to skip range, and that the way we sorting the bundle in the resolver, you basically using replace or skip to basically connect one to each other. When we don't actually consider skip range, because skip range have a blanket situation. And because it break at the skip range point, so they're the end, which is the latest version using replace or skip, and then the newest one, which is using skip range. And those two doesn't connect each other because we don't actually consider skip range at the connection point. Then there are two different versions that consider the header channel, and I think that leads into the multiple channel head situation.
Right.
But I thought this should be resolved by the pruning process.
There's nothing that prunes a file-based catalog.
Yeah, so I think this is the issue there.
No, yeah.
What's the error message? I think
multiple
it basically
head.
said,
Yeah, multiple head.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I wasn't able to read that, so that's clear. Then OPM validate will throw this error, so that we're good. Sorry for that.
Yeah. All right then. No worry. We just want to make sure everything clear up. All right. Let's see. We can wrap this thing on time. This is the security vulnerable. I think we have a long talk about this. Oh, so this is okay. So this is gonna be on the downstream fix instead, and I think I'm gonna close this on upstream. Is that gonna be a problem, Joe? Joe?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think it's fine to close since they're asking about a downstream thing.
Yeah. All right then. All right then. the last one without the track. Also, this on OPM render. Joe also had comment on this already.
So this one is, so if you're familiar with OPM render, it can render bundle images and it can render all sorts of various catalogs.
Yeah.
This request is, can we render a bundle directory?
Oh.
And generally that will be fine, except for one problem, which is that when we render a bundle directory, we don't know what the image is. So when we generate the file-based catalog representation, that field ends up being blank, which I think is not good. So I've been hesitant to support this for that reason. One of the suggestions was, okay, well, let us pass an image on the OPM render command line. That's also a little weird because now we have a flag that only applies to one type of argument that you can pass. So my suggestion was like, we could add this, like we could just say like, okay, yeah, we'll render the bundle directory. We'll leave the image field just blank. And then you can post-process it. Like I think I have an example in one of my messages that says like, just, pass it through JQ or YQ to add the image to it.
Yes.
I think that's fairly reasonable, but I think, in my opinion, we should not add a flag to OPM render that handles bundle directories specifically, because that makes for a confusing UX when the flag only really applies for one use case.
I agree. Is that Anik? Go ahead, Anik.
Sorry, the interesting thing that I see is the interesting thing in this issue is the last comment where the reporter says, can we leave the tricks up to OPM? And with file-based catalog, I think one of the primary goal was to offload the tricks out of OPM so that it's kind of is less maintenance burden on us. But it's interesting to see reporters wanting the tricks inside OPM.
Yeah, so I agree with what Joe said, and I think it's applied to exactly what you just said, and Nick as well, that there's certain thing about the output of render command is not really our domain anymore, because we're the ones supposed to be scaffolding it. And then after that, you're supposed to be, adding any type extra information that fits to your need, right? And in this particular case, it's actually the image, the bundle image itself. And I think it's okay for OPM render to render directory and output the JSON blob or YAML blob for that matter, and let this related image for the bundle itself being blank, and afterward they would need to be filling it, because I think this problem should be detected on the validation command. Is that correct, Joe? I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this.
So what you're looking at right there would not be filled in at all because we don't even know the image.
Yeah, correct. But would this problem surface on a validation command? I thought it will.
I think we do some checks where if we don't have all of the bundle objects, I think there might be like one way that you can specify an OLM.bundle without specifying an image. But I can't remember. This was like a specific thing we talked about way back when, and I can't remember what OLM still supports and what it doesn't support. So
yeah, I agree with the fact that I do not wish having a specific tag for this command, as long as this problem may surface during a validation, because I feel like the typical workflow where you render this and then you can make some changes, whatever the case may be, and you validate that to ensuring you don't miss anything. You see what I'm saying here? So as long if this surface it pop up, then that's not our problem anymore. That we actually doing our due diligence to show up, to surface to you that this is something missing that you need to address.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay,
that's how good then. Do you agree, Anik? Anik? Okay. Assuming the silent mean he already. All right then. I think everything here is pretty. Joe, you want to put a comment on this based on what we just discussed so far, or I can do it as well. But if you can.
If you don't mind commenting what we just discussed, I'm going to go and try what you just said we should try in the background and see what happens.
All right, I will say to you then. Seems like you already on it. All right, then. Thank you. Let's put this milestone here to make sure we get this thing done. All right. I think this the end of that. We're already 2 over minutes, so I think we should stop here. I think we get everything dry, so that's good. Wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next meeting later.
Thanks for running this, Wu. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.